Hello, Gordon here. Hope all is well with you. This Facebook Live I've called Jean-Paul Sartre, Absolute Cobblers. D, 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 D. Got a nice little flow to that, hasn't it, as a title? And to be fair, right from the get-go, I don't think he was talking absolute cobblers, maybe partial cobblers. And what's the expression for partial cobblers then? I don't know, is that one cobbler? I don't know. Anyway, look, a bit of background, and we're going to go for a bit of philosophy today. I was talking to a friend of mine who is into his philosophy and his religion and his politics, and we have lots of discussions about it, because if he talks about something that I might have a vague knowledge about, I ask him to tell me more, hoping that he will, so that I can find out more. And he does tell me more, which is why I really like talking to him, because I like people, or I like someone to have an opinion that is backed up by a thought process and consideration. All right. So when someone has an opinion, but they can't back it up with any thoughts behind it, then more likely than not, they're just echoing someone else's opinion. So I like people to have their own opinion, which this friend of mine does have. And we were talking about philosophy, and he mentioned Jean-Paul Sartre, and I knew the name, but if someone said to me what was Sartre's main philosophy, I wouldn't be able to tell you. So I asked this friend of mine, and he came up with the answer, and it's an interesting one. So I'm going to tell you what the basic philosophy. I mean, obviously he had lots of works. I'm going to talk about his core idea and why I think that it's absolute cobblers, or at least more than half cobblers. So Sartre talked about the anguish of freedom and the anguish of existence, in that any object or circumstance in life doesn't have any meaning on its own. Anything only has meaning because of the meaning that we put onto it. Now, whether we put that meaning on as an individual or a society, the fact still stands that anything only has meaning because of the meaning that we choose to put on it. Right? And he also said that as humans, we were ultimately free. Free to do what we want and to be what we want, with an infinite amount of possibilities. So there was no predefined destiny. We could do what we wanted, which sounds great. But the trouble is, according to Jean-Paul Sartre, that although there was an infinite amount of possibilities, almost too many to choose from, with any of them, we restrict ourselves by these sets of meanings that we tend to follow in society, i.e. capitalism. Now, Sartre was a raging anti-capitalist, and he says that the view in society, or the established rule in society, that you have to go and work for an employer and do a job for a set amount of money, doing a job that you don't enjoy, that has no meaning for you in and of itself, is absurd. But we do that to earn money. And money in and of itself has no meaning, but we have to earn it to buy food. So although we're free to choose to not work, if we don't want to, we've then got the problem of, well, how are we going to pay for food? How are we going to pay for a roof over our head if we don't have money? So you can choose not to believe in capitalism. You can choose to say, well, money in itself has got no meaning. My job in itself has got no meaning, so I'm not going to do it. But because society says that we have to, that we should, we've got what Jean-Paul Sartre called the anguish of freedom. Our Parallel is saying, hi Gordon, hi. This is something it's similar to, you raised this point in your group today, Rewire Your Story. And I thought, I had planned to do this Facebook Live on my personal profile, so I'll share it into your group later. Yes, Jean-Paul Sartre, mankind is destined to live in this perpetual anguish of freedom. So, even just saying that, you won't be surprised if you followed me for any length of time. You say, well, what would Gordon think of that? And Gordon would say, that's absolute cobblers. And I do say that, but it's only partly cobblers. It's only partly true, partly not true. And the reason I say it's only partly cobblers is because you can't deny that we do live, I do, and you do, we all do, live by rules of society that we choose to follow, whether we think it has meaning or not. So we might choose to do a job that we hate in order to earn money that has no meaning in and of itself, just to buy food. And we've got to do it. We've got to do it because you've got to buy food. So although you might not believe in money, you're stuck in this loop. Now here's the thing. It's not true that we are destined to suffer in this vicious circle of the anguish of freedom. It just isn't true. It might be true that we have to follow this idea of capitalism and earning money to pay for food, because if we just left our jobs and went off to live in a field, we're going to go hungry. Or you think, oh well, you might live off the land. Well, you could do that. Good luck with that, by the way. And the authorities are going to come after you at some point. So you could do it that way. You could become someone outside society. And some people do that. It's a little bit drastic if you ask me. I prefer to go for a second option, which is to say, whether you like capitalism or not, I don't actually have a problem myself with capitalism. I'm not a raging anti-capitalist like Jean-Paul Sartre was and like my friend was. I'm not. But what you can do, since my friend said, I hate capitalism, but I have to subscribe to it in order to live, in order to survive. And I said to him, well, in that case, if you're choosing to subscribe to capitalism, even though you say you're doing it because you have to, it is nevertheless a choice. Why don't you choose to subscribe to capitalism and leverage it to your benefit to tap in to any of these infinite possibilities of freedom that Jean-Paul Sartre spoke about, to do what we want and to be what we want. Because obviously I'm recording this in Britain, he's British, we're having this conversation in Britain, we're both white with a good education. That means the opportunities available to us, which aren't available to everyone, are available to us. Now he says the fact that they're not available to everyone is the problem. And I can see that point. I can understand that point. But he or I or you or anyone can leverage capitalism for good in the world, can't we? Because if Jean-Paul Sartre said that money in itself has no meaning, Emma is saying I put Jean-Paul Sartre and Cobblers in the same sentence. Yes, and rightly so. So if money in itself has no meaning, the only meaning we attach to money is what we do with it and what we use it for. A lot of anti-capitalists say that money is always used for evil and power. It really isn't. It really isn't. You can choose to believe that. but you can choose to believe what I believe, that it really isn't. That you can make a bucket load of money and then choose to do good with it. You can open up a kibbutz for all your Marxist friends, couldn't you? I'm not being sarcastic or glib when I make that comment. You could do. Emma's been to Jean-Paul Sartre's grave. Well worth a visit. Where is he buried? We've had this discussion before. You've been all over the bloody place, haven't you? Everywhere I comment, oh yeah, I've been there. So where's his grave? It's not in London, is it? Isn't Karl Marx buried in London? I think he might be. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent. So yes, if you've followed me for any length of time, you'll know about my Transform Your Life Now strand of content. That just as passionately as Jean-Paul Sartre believed that we're all doomed to live in this perpetual anguish of freedom, I believe just as passionately that we're not, and that anyone can make transformational changes in their life by simply following a set of techniques and ideas. And if I had to sum or distill those techniques and ideas down into two words, the first word would be belief. Belief that you can do it and belief that you're going to do it. And the second word would be action. Because belief, yeah, fine, belief is fine. But belief combined with action, ooh, that's where the power is. Hell is other people. Or was that Nietzsche? No, I think you're right. I think it was Sartre that said that hell is other people. That hell is what he called bad faith. That we're all living, choosing to subscribe to this model of capitalism that you have to work for a company or someone else to earn money to pay for food. That is, we're all choosing to live in bad faith. Emma, in Paris, who? Karl Marx? Is it? Oh, well, hang on, which one? Oh, Sartre. Sartre's in Paris. Yeah, okay. Fair enough. So, what do you think? I found myself surprisingly ignorant about Jean-Paul Sartre, but massively fascinated when this bloke was reeling off an in-depth analysis and information about him, which he's done about many other philosophers and many political figures and political stances. I love chatting to people like that because I love soaking up information. And also, here's the thing, I can see the passion when they talk about it, because their eyes light up just that little bit more. Their tone of voice gets just that little bit more confident because they don't doubt what they're saying. That is a key. Once you learn to pick that up from someone, oh, it's huge, because then once they're on a roll, all you need to do is metaphorically or physically take a step back and just let them get on with it, and you can just listen. You might need to prompt them every now and again, but just let them talk, and it's fascinating, the stuff that you can hear. It really is. I love it. I could spend all day doing it, which is pretty much what philosophers do. I've often thought of studying philosophy, actually, because I think I would love it. But the trouble with philosophy is it tends to be that the only jobs available for philosophy graduates is going into teaching philosophy. Which is an interesting philosophy, isn't it? That if a professor in philosophy is teaching his class knowing that the only way his class are going to make money from it is to take his job, what would be the philosophy behind that? I know what Jean-Paul Sartre would say. He would say, that is the anguish of freedom. Emma saying there's a load of countries you haven't been to. Yeah. You just do a full-blown itinerary when I visit. Oh yeah, fair enough. I'll give you that. Great topic, Emma is saying. I enjoy it. As I say, I enjoyed it. And this friend of mine has got, to be fair, a bleak outlook on life. He's a graduate. He's a university graduate. He's got a bleak outlook on the world and a bleak outlook on life. And when I try to tell him about my belief in possibility and my belief in capability, it's not quite like talking to a brick wall, because in the same way that I listen to him, he does listen to me, and he genuinely does listen to me. I can tell that he's listening from a position of thinking that I'm the one that's talking absolute cobblers. And I've yet to persuade him otherwise. And his mantra is, well, you do it first. You do it first, and then I might believe you. Which is a reasonable position, isn't it? That's not an unreasonable position. I've tried to tell him how he could take his passion for philosophy and politics and religion, and he could actually turn that passion into profit online. He doesn't believe that either, actually. But then he is a raging anti-capitalist. Emma, you combined your philosophy degree with another subject because you didn't want to be a teacher. It's a valid point. So the next question is, what did you combine your philosophy degree with? Presumably it was something useful. I didn't mean that to sound the way that it came out, actually. Go on then, what did you combine your philosophy degree with? Yes, I'd love to do a philosophy degree, but I'm not paying £9,000 a year and funding my life for 3 years just to come out the other end and say, Because with the power of the internet, you can find all this stuff online, and you can have philosophical discussions and discussions about philosophers without needing to do it in a university setting. You can leverage the power of the internet. And as I've said before, I call the internet a staggering abundance of opportunity. Nothing to do with this anguish of freedom, cobblers, that Jean-Paul Sartre talked about. No, it is a staggering abundance of opportunity. And anyone who says otherwise hasn't, well, I sounded a bit sarcastic and I didn't mean to, or condescending. I would be tempted to say they haven't quite understood it. That sounds condescending and patronising, and it's not meant to be, but I think it's true. What does he believe? Need to replay? Yes, you'll have to replay. Counselling and psychotherapy. So you combined philosophy with counselling and psychotherapy. Ooh, nice little mix that. Emma is saying Coursera has got some good courses and some are free. Yes, there's plenty of free learning opportunities online. But here's something else about particularly learning philosophy, actually. My friend sent me a huge long email to carry on this discussion about Jean-Paul Sartre. And in his email, he was using a lot of words that I didn't know. And he used a lot of them in quick succession. And I didn't know. And what happens to me, and obviously this happens to a lot of people, certainly happens to me, as soon as you start to see a lot of words that are jargon, basically, niche jargon, as soon as you get a lot of them all in one go and you don't understand them, and your brain says, I now don't understand what this person is talking about. So you've got two choices. You can either go back to the person and say, what does this word mean? What does that word mean? What does that word mean? For every single word that you didn't understand, which is fair enough. Or the brain just tends to say, no, that's enough. I'm not going to bother looking at it anymore because I just don't understand it. And I think that is a danger of the world of philosophy. It can be a little bit jargon heavy, in my view. Emma says, speak to the average man on the street or sit in a cafe people watching. Philosophy right there. Yes, true. And Jean-Paul Sartre would say, if you talk to the... I imagine is what he'd say. I don't want to put words into his mouth. I imagine he would say that the average man on the street, which is what is normally meant by the man on the street, the average man on the street would say, yes, we do have to go to work for a living, to earn money, to pay for food. So Jean-Paul Sartre would say, see, everyone is choosing, whether they know they are or not, they're choosing to subscribe to this model. Never mind the fact that there is an infinite number of possibilities that the average person on the street could do, but they choose not to. That the average man on the street who might want to be a musician, a pop star, would say, nah, that's not for me. Well, why isn't it? The average man on the street who might choose to be an astronaut would say, nah, it's not for me. Well, why isn't it? Would say Jean-Paul Sartre. And the only reason why it isn't for you is because you've decided it isn't. Because you've decided to work in a factory or a shop or an office for 40 years to earn just about enough money to pay for your house. I think that's what the average man on the street would say. More people would say it than would not say it, I imagine. And that's one of the fascinating points about philosophy, is that unless I'm right, or unless I'm wrong, sorry, the majority of people, the majority of society might think something and follow a set of rules without knowing that they think it. Without knowing that they're choosing to follow a set of rules. And that is a big cornerstone of my Transform Your Life Now content. Because it's all about being aware of the choices you've made in the past and the possibilities of the choices that you make for the future and in the present. Emma is saying there's a quote somewhere that if you know a topic really well and in depth, you don't need to use long fancy words. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm almost tempted to go and investigate that. Well, I'll tell you what, you can go and investigate that quote and get back to me with it. Not now, but come back to me with that quote. I'll be interested to hear what it is. Yes, I mean, if you going back to this idea about opinions backed up with thoughts, I think any opinion you have you should be able to back it up with other thoughts, and you should be able to express those thoughts in lots of different ways so that lots of other people can understand them. And here's something I got from Earl Nightingale, motivational, self-improvement, big influencer, thought influencer, from way back when. And Earl Nightingale talked about vocabulary, that the amount of words the average person uses is minuscule, like a couple of thousand, out of a dictionary of many, many, many thousands, certainly way more than 2,000. So most people hardly use any of the available words. And this is one thing I've always considered about it. There's a lot of people who F and Jeff a lot, where swearing is, every other word is a swear word. I've always tended to think that that's because they just don't know any other words to express themselves. They don't know any better words. So if they try and express themselves with one set of words and it doesn't work, all they've got left is to go to the swear words. Because it's their choice A of words or swear words. They haven't got a choice B of word. They can't express themselves through plan B. They can't express themselves through plan C because they simply don't know any different words. And what Earl Nightingale said, and something that I've sort of developed in my own way, is that the more words you you learn and the more words you know, you can express yourself in different ways. So you can express the same point from many different angles. Two advantages to that. First advantage is that you can talk to different people in maybe different classes and different societies in different ways about the same point. And the second angle to that, just as important, maybe if not more important, you can talk to yourself in different ways about the same point. And you will have heard me speak before about how powerful self-talk is. Oh, talking about life transformation just from the self-talk. So the more words you know, the different way that you can express yourself, talking to yourself. Emma could talk for hours on these topics. Yes, so could I, which is why I thought it was an interesting subject to talk about. Jean-Paul Sartre, absolute cobblers. Or brackets, maybe only a bit cobblers, close brackets. So let me know what you think. If you're watching the replay, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about this anguish of freedom. Do you think the anguish of freedom is right and that humans are destined to live in this endless anguish of freedom? Or do you think, like me, well, I'm not sure that's true. I think choice that humans have means that we could choose to fit into that anguish of freedom. Yeah, we could choose to. But I think rather than being predestined, I think that's a choice. And we can choose to do something vastly different. So, I did go into waffle mode. I didn't even have my clock on, so I don't know how long I've been going. Way longer than I thought I would. So I'm going to sign off. Hope all is well with you. Wishing you, as ever, health and happiness. And I will speak to you again soon.